For nearly 2 decades, wildlife ranger Marcus Hale had walked the wide African savanna as if it were part of his own life. Every winding trail, every cluster of acacia trees, and every quiet bend of the muddy river was familiar to him. The land moved through seasons that Marcus could read like a story. The coming of rain, the migration of herds, and the shifting winds marked the passage of years more clearly than any calendar. Always beside him was his loyal black Labrador, Jet. To many people Jet was simply a working dog, but to Marcus he was much more. The Labrador was his partner on patrol, his protector in dangerous moments, and the closest companion he had ever known. Most days on the reserve followed a calm and steady rhythm. Marcus and Jet drove across dusty tracks watching elephant herds move slowly through the tall grass. They recorded fresh lion tracks in the dirt, removed illegal snares set by poachers, and cleared fallen branches from narrow paths used by patrol vehicles. It was quiet work that required patience, and over the years Marcus and Jet had become a perfect team, moving through the wild with a silent understanding. One year, however, the savanna turned suddenly violent. Dark storm clouds gathered and rain began to fall harder than anyone expected. Gentle streams became raging rivers overnight, and thunder rolled across the plains like distant drums. Lightning tore through the sky while strong winds bent the trees and whipped the grass flat. The once peaceful river swelled with muddy water, rushing so fiercely that it ripped branches from its banks and carried debris far downstream. Rangers split into small teams to search for animals trapped by the floods. Marcus drove his mud-covered truck carefully along a slippery track while rain pounded against the roof. Jet sat upright in the back seat, staring out at the storm with intense focus. The smell of wet earth filled the air. Suddenly the Labrador stiffened and let out a deep growl before barking loudly. His body trembled with urgency as he pushed against the window. Marcus slowed the truck and looked toward the roaring river nearby. At first he saw nothing unusual, only churning brown water and broken branches rushing past. But before Marcus could react, Jet leapt through the open window and landed in the mud. The dog sprinted toward the riverbank without hesitation. "Jet!" Marcus shouted, jumping from the truck and running after him. But the Labrador had already plunged into the raging current. Marcus ran along the bank, his boots slipping in the soaked ground. The river roared so loudly it nearly drowned out his voice. Then he spotted something small tumbling in the water. A tiny lion cub was being tossed helplessly by the flood, its golden fur soaked and its little paws struggling weakly before it disappeared beneath the surface. Jet fought through the powerful current, paddling with all his strength. Waves crashed over his head as Marcus ran beside the river shouting encouragement. For a terrifying moment the cub vanished underwater. Then Jet lunged forward and gently caught the cub by the scruff of its neck, just as a lioness carries her young. The current pushed them sideways, dragging them under again, but the Labrador refused to let go. Marcus slid down the muddy bank and reached toward the struggling dog. For a brief second their eyes met, filled with trust built over years together. With one last powerful push, Jet swam close enough for Marcus to grab his collar and pull both animals onto solid ground. All three collapsed in the mud, exhausted and soaked. Jet lay trembling but still protected the tiny cub until Marcus carefully lifted it. The little lion's chest moved faintly. Marcus felt a weak heartbeat and immediately radioed for emergency help. Soon the cub was rushed to a nearby wildlife rescue center where veterinarians worked quickly under bright lights. They cleared water from its lungs and monitored its breathing. After tense moments that felt like forever, the cub stirred and let out a soft cry. Relief spread through the room. Jet was treated for scratches and exhaustion, but he never stopped watching the cub he had risked his life to save. In the weeks that followed, the cub slowly regained strength. The team named him Kovu. At first he stayed frightened and hidden in the corner of his enclosure, but every day Jet rested calmly nearby. Over time the cub began to approach the fence, curious about the dog who had pulled him from the river. One afternoon Kovu gently pressed his small head against Jet's fur, a quiet moment of trust that left Marcus speechless. Months passed, and the once fragile cub grew into a strong young lion ready to return to the wild. On the morning of his release, Marcus brought Jet to see him one last time. Kovu rubbed against the Labrador affectionately before stepping into the transport crate. As the truck drove away across the endless plains, Jet sat beside Marcus watching until it disappeared beyond the horizon. Marcus placed a hand on his loyal companion's back and smiled softly. Some stories remind us that courage and compassion can exist anywhere, even between animals who should be strangers in the wild. If this incredible story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing wildlife stories and unforgettable moments from nature.